Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Diablo 4. Brutally honest impressions, and does it live up to the hype? Well, let's find out.
Diablo 4's early access has been out for a day or so, plenty enough for a first impression of the game so far.
Yeah.
I played through it pretty extensively, and what I've seen after this and the other betas last year is that Blizzard is definitely making good progress, but there's still quite a long way ahead of them.
Okay.
Luckily, we still have a few months until then, so in the meantime, we'll talk
I'm
about
sure the game will be completely fixed in a few months if you think there's something big wrong with it.
my experience in the early access, including the things that I really liked and the ones that I liked a little bit less. That being said, to anyone who's been playing any of the previous Diablo games and going into the new one, obviously the core DNA is still very much there.
Yeah.
And gameplay wise, it feels just
I remember there was this one guy in my chat. He was like, man, I refunded this game. I played it, and it just looks like another Diablo game. And I'm thinking to myself, like, so, what did you expect?
good, if not even better, due to some of the changes being made. One of the things that remains as solid as ever is the class and build diversity, and I thoroughly enjoyed trying out each class, fiddling with builds before deciding on one that really clicked with me. It feels like every class has a path that you can choose depending what you enjoy the most and what challenges lie ahead.
I'll tell you one thing, bro. This is the wrong build. Whatever he's doing it wrong.
There were definitely systems in there that helped promoting that.
Uh-huh.
The transition to a more traditional node-like skill tree also helps here too, giving the player a greater sense of control over the final outcome without sacrificing the possibility of still making choices as you build your character up. There is one cost, however, quite literally, as respecking can become prohibitively expensive at later levels if you do it a little bit too often, but
it's not that bad. At least at 25, like respecking, it's like 100 gold to respec a talent, and you're selling items for 1,000 gold each. It is like nothing. It is such a passive gold sink that it will never impact anybody's gameplay in a negative way. I don't think it's a problem.
I'm expecting those to drop off on higher end, more rewarding content that becomes available later on. Of course, none of this would matter if combat and spells
However, this could change at max level.
did not feel satisfying, which they very much do, maybe even compared to the previous Diablo game. There's a greater focus now on enemy reaction and animations, which combined with the improved particle effects, I guess, contribute to giving you that feeling of impact with each and every single attack. It's almost...
Oh yeah, I mean the combat, the visceral nature of it is good. It's all good for sure.
like you're always incentivized to jump into the biggest group possible and unleash your strongest attacks to send all enemies flying and see what you are capable of.
That's right.
Loot and special items further facilitate this power fantasy, and even as early as level 25, Diablo 4 lets you create some very strong and diverse setups due to the sheer number of effects for each class.
Exactly.
The point that this might feel a bit overwhelming at times as you're shuffling through countless legendaries to see which effect best fits your current setup. On a few
I don't think that's going to be as big of an issue whenever you're leveling up. I actually don't think so.
occasions, I even found myself distracted by the number
Because
of
like a lot of people that are like, you're talking about like this is somebody who's playing at level 25. So like at max level, it's going to be totally different.
of enticing effects that needed me to do a full respec of the character before testing them out. Loot is overly abundant despite Blizzard having said loot showers won't be as prevalent as in the previous games. And while that's true to a certain extent, eventually the difference becomes less and less.
Nah, bro, it's the exact same as Diablo 3. It's actually more. Like as somebody who played Diablo 3 on release, I think that there's more yellow drops from the level 25 rares here than there were for level 60 rares in Diablo 3 on release.
As distinguishable
Yeah,
to the point that you're still
it's
getting overwhelmed
way
by loot drops
more.
regardless. That being said, the rate of legendary drops in the beta was more than reasonable and so far on
There's
a
a lot
strong
of them.
start from my point of view. Character customization was another aspect I really appreciated, even though the isometric nature of Diablo 4 not permitting a full-on...
Yeah, the camera angle is such a deterrent. I wish that you could zoom in more. Lost Ark allows your character to zoom in. Like, you can go from top down to like this right there, and then you can go like front facing so you actually see what your character looks like. Diablo should add that. Lost Ark has it. You've already stolen half of their ideas. At least steal this one too.
Detailed look. Even so, from the character creation screen to the abundant gear system and transmog, I feel that the game has done a great job at letting the player be who they want to be, of course within the confinements of the game's theme. However, the game does get a -1 point from me due to the lack of skin transfer of some of the cooler looking skins. For some reason, certain really good looking weapons and armors cannot be salvaged, and as a result cannot have their skins transmogged onto other pieces of gear.
I think this is probably something that there will be items that are only accessible at higher levels, and maybe you'll get a version that's transmoggable at a higher level. I don't think that's a big deal at all. Why would that be? But yeah, it's just probably not going to be like, I could see like 10 different reasons for that.
Like that was such a missed opportunity on Blizzard's part, unless they obviously have some other ways to make that possible, but I mean, haven't found it so far. Now, for some of the other aspects, a few of which I've seen other people complaining about, or even more so praising, on some of these I'm a bit more neutral. For example, I don't really care about the UI that much. I've seen a number of players saying that
I think the UI is fine.
It looks like a mobile game, well, unless
that's so fucking stupid. Most UIs could be a mobile game. And do you know why UIs look like mobile games? It's because mobile game UIs are good. They have to be good because they have to fit on a fucking phone.
It's another Diablo game. I don't think it is. Even more so, to me,
I
it
think
looks
the UI
exactly
is totally
like that
fine.
of Diablo 3's, and I don't really care much about it. Also, graphics-wise, the game looks good. I definitely like the more realistic and gritty approach, more so than Diablo 3's more cartoonish style. At least that's my opinion of it. You don't have to agree with it. On the same note, I'm kinda in between on the same stance about the main story. I do like the aesthetic and the main villain, Lilith. Definitely an interesting concept, but oftentimes I found myself skipping through dialogues and cutscenes. Maybe due to the beta limited time, so that might change in the final release for me.
Yeah, I feel like at a certain point there might have been a little bit too much dialogue. I can agree with him there.
Thing that I'm not too sold on is the always online aspect. On one hand, I do appreciate being...
What do you mean? Like, every game is always online. It's a live service game. It's going to be always online. This is just not going to change. It didn't change with Diablo 3. It's certainly fucking not going to change with Diablo 4. Okay, like, this is just a complete fucking waste of time to talk about.
Able to seamlessly play with my friends and quickly invite them into parties, but on the other hand, in every single game I played that had co-op in the past few years, this always led up to performance and stability problems. Also, I cannot say too much about the monetization since we haven't...
So here's some of the reasons why they do that. They do that, number one, because it makes it harder to have pirated versions of the game. They also do that so that people can't like add in different hacks and things like that, and they can't check for them because it's tradable. Like, I feel like if you had a game that you could play offline, it would be probably easier to hack items and then put them into the game online. I don't know this, but it seems that way to me as somebody with like literally no knowledge to it. So, like, they're not going to make an offline version of it. It's just not going to happen. And if they do, it'll probably be for like consoles or something like that.
Seen the full extent of it, but if Blizzard keeps true to its word and resists the temptation to not screw another game up, I think it might just turn up fine. As long as they strictly keep that to the seasonal passes and a few other cosmetic items in the shop, I think it's going to be fine.
I don't see Blizzard adding in like being able to buy gems on the store or something like that. And clip this, right? Within like 2 years they do. But I really don't see this happening. I don't see any universe where this is going to happen.
Doesn't affect progression in any way. Now, in terms of the truly bad, unfortunately, this was another beta that couldn't get rid of performance and server issues on day one. For me,
well, that's why it's on beta. I mean, like they're putting it on beta. Like the big reason why Blizzard does betas, in my mind, is to get like a head count of how many people are going to play the game on launch, or at least like be able to extrapolate from that, and also to see where the hangups are. Like that's the entire purpose of the beta.
and many of my friends having crossplay enabled on the PC
They're soft launches,
caused
yeah.
the most amount of issues, including lag spikes and disconnects,
I had
which
that
is why
too.
we had to completely turn it off. However, another
I didn't
buddy
have
of mine
DCs, but I
who
got lag
played
spikes.
only on the PlayStation 5 had absolutely no issues at all, disconnects or performance likewise. So clearly PC has some issues here, and I've seen a few reports of some really bad memory leaks from the PC client that need to
Man, whenever I watch people's builds, it makes me feel better about mine. I'll tell you, man, like playing a sorcerer is just really something special.
be fixed. Also, the world boss timer didn't work the first day, though I will give Blizzard credit
worked for me.
solving it within minutes. Obviously,
Yeah.
stress testing the server was the purpose of the spawn times,
Exactly.
though all these issues do not inspire much confidence for the open beta next week, or even more so the full game launch when the player base will be much larger.
I don't think this is a very good point, personally. I mean, what he's saying is like there's server stability issues. Yeah, why do you think they're doing a beta? They do this with every game that they do. Most of these server like beta type things are to stress test the servers and get an idea of how many people are going to play, so they can plan for that on the release. Overwatch 2 was absolutely fucking garbage release on the first day, maybe the second day. I'll tell you, like with Dragonflight, absolutely perfect launch, no problems whatsoever. Shadowlands launch, absolutely perfect launch, no problems at all ever. Let's see, what was before that? BFA launch, absolutely no problems. I had like a DC for like an hour. That was about it. The truth is that Blizzard actually does do pretty good launches, especially if you compare it to a lot of other online games.
Hopefully I'm wrong on that one, but most of Blizzard's past games and expansions had massive server and queue issues around launch, so I'm not keeping hopes too high. Of course, these are all technical issues. In theory, they can be fixed easily. However, there are...
Somebody says in chat, classic queue times though. Players wanted that. Blizzard had the solution and players didn't want the solution. That's not Blizzard's fault. Wards of Draenor taught them well. Yes, WoD but like WoD happened like 9 years ago. What? Wait, that's the question. Wait, the queue times? Wait, what are there? Wait, why are people question marking this? Wait, what part of what I said was question mark? Don't understand what I said? It's simple. Players with Classic WoW, players wanted Blizzard to not have any sort of phasing or any sort of cross-realm at all. And in order to do that, they had to have queues. So because Blizzard was not able to use the technology that they have to solve this problem, because it would be antithetical to the game, Classic WoW, we had queues because of that. Now, if people were okay with cross-realm, then we would not have had queues. The queues were entirely optional.
are a few problems that I noticed that have to do more with game design. One
That's
of them is the
what
repetitive
happened.
nature of a lot of the dungeon gameplay, which is supposed to be the core of Diablo 4. On one side, there were a few
Yeah, the dungeons are pretty repetitive. Each dungeon is pretty much the same thing. Like, I would say they're like, oh, there's 120 dungeons. In the first zone, there's about 6. There's the crypt ones, there's the frost ones, there's the keep ones, and there's the library ones. And maybe there's another one that I didn't think of. Yeah, they're about the same.
many times both during this early access and
It's
the previous
outdoors one,
betas
yeah.
when I noticed a lot of reused dungeon layouts with a lot of almost copy and paste dungeon sections. Usually it's a corridor or a hallway and sometimes even a whole room even within the same dungeon that feels so jarring that it made me believe on many occasions that I must have taken a wrong turn and gone back on the same map because of how similar the areas looked to the previous ones I've just been into.
I didn't have this problem. I feel like obviously this is the case. You go back and you look at Diablo 3, like what did we have? We had the forest in Act 1, you had the catacombs or the crypt, and then you had like the other forest. You had the forest with the ghosts, and you had the forest with the walking trees. And maybe there was one more Act 1 tile set. The sewers? I thought sewers were Act 2. Well, anyway, like, yeah, the mansion. Oh, yeah, you had the mansion, too. And that was about it. Yeah, sewers were Act 2,
Another
that's what I
thing
thought.
that quickly grew old on me was how many dungeons had the exact same mechanic to unlocking the final boss room,
Yes.
which usually involves a blocked door that either requires 2 keys or 2 mechanisms or something in the opposite sides of the dungeons that you need to open in the first place.
Yeah, they're very
I don't
samey.
remember previous Diablo games literally gatekeeping bosses in this way, but Diablo 4 seems to do it a bit too often. That being said,
I find it to be unnecessary. And I also think it's kind of boring. It would be cooler, in my opinion, if, let's say, in order to have the key, it makes the boss weaker. But you can fight the harder version of the boss if you just go directly to the boss. I think that would be cooler. And, like, that could be more efficient for you if you have a better character. So you don't have to run around as much. There's a lot of different ways that you could do this to make it more interesting than just walk over, click 2 rocks every single time. Or
my
more
overall
loot. Yes, or
impressions
more
are
loot.
very solid, and most of the issues don't compare to the things that Diablo 4
I would
does
prefer
right.
harder boss.
I'm expecting at least a few hundred hours of game time in the final release, judging by what I've seen up until this point.
Yeah, I hope
but
so.
of course, that all depends on Blizzard and how they end up delivering on this product. So far, the game's very addictive and offers something new for both newcomers and veterans of the franchise likewise.
It's good.
So let me know down below what's your overall impression of the beta so far, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Yeah, I think this was pretty fair. Again, I don't really agree with the server problems because I think that's clearly like the explicit purpose of the beta in my mind. So I don't think that's an issue. However, whenever it happens on live, then I'll fucking complain about it. And also the dungeons, I think this is a pretty common opinion that people have. Let's see here. You could go out of your way to get the keys and make the boss harder for more loot, whereas you just rush through the dungeon and you can obtain the codex. Yeah, there's one or the other. I think that either one would be really, really cool. Did you notice the map caps at level 40? So 40 to 70, maybe in hell. That's so cool. Yeah, it's kind of what I had expected, right? I mean, I feel like that's the way every Diablo game is it ends in hell. I mean, come on. But yeah, it's... I mean, I don't know. There's side-by-side comparison between Diablo 4 and PoE 2 if you want to check it out. I mean, I don't really care that much about how the game looks. That's really the truth. I like the way PoE looks. I like the way Torchlight Infinite looks. I like the way that Lost Epoch looks. I like the way that Lost Ark looks. I don't really think that like one of these is like that much better or worse than the other. It's just a different style.